Hey there, homeschool mom. Welcome to our newest episode of the Homeschool Well podcast. Today, we are bringing you our 100th episode. We can't even believe it. And what we're going to be talking about today is just we're kind of revisiting like how we started homeschooling and then giving an update of where we are today. We started our first episode about 2 years ago. And so we are just thinking back and giving an update of where we are today, where our kids are today, and what we've learned throughout the journey.
So this is Kim, and I am just woo-hooing on the 100th episode.
It's
Jenny and I
amazing.
it's amazing. Jenny and I want to thank you so much to all of our listeners for the support and being there. We see the numbers on the back end and we see the reviews, and you give us the little stars and the thumbs up and all the things. And we just want to thank you so much for the support and being able to record 100 episodes
Yes.
and then even more from now on,
Yes.
we'll see what the next 100 are going to lead us to.
So we hope you enjoy today's 100th episode and we hope it's encouraging for you. Hey, I'm Jenny Barr.
And I'm Kim Godfrey.
We're friends, former teachers, and homeschool moms ourselves who host the Homeschool Well podcast. We talk about topics that are important to homeschool moms so that you can be your child's best teacher.
Homeschool moms, welcome to our 100th episode. It's Kim and Jenny today,
Woohoo! We're
and
both
we
here.
we are both here on our 100th episode. We can't believe it. 100.
No, we can't believe it. Seriously.
It's a crazy number.
Where has the
It's
time
super
gone?
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's super cool. And we are going to start right with a scripture verse today. It's Galatians 6:9. Is that correct, Jenny?
It's
We were
Galatians
just
6:9.
we were just talking about a couple of them, and this one really
Mhm.
resonates with us. And we just want to start out the 100th episode with this truth and encouragement. Here it is. So let's not get tired of doing what is good. At just the right time, we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't give up. That's Galatians 6:9. And we're speaking that into your homeschool. And we're also speaking it to ourselves about
Yeah, into our
making
lives.
into our lives as parents, but also as making podcasts, right? Because
Oh, that too.
it's been a major learning curve for us. Um, a major shift in, I think, when we started what we thought it would look like. Like we just thought we would be able to make podcasts together every single time, right? You
Yeah,
and me talking together. But we've had to really shift that expectation because of time, because we're still taking care of our kids, right?
right.
And so today we are just leaning into Galatians 6:9, and we are praying it over you, not to get tired of doing what is good. It's good that you're homeschooling, even though it's hard. At times it seems impossible. We've been there, we understand that. But
Mhm.
God has just the right time, and maybe even little times like throughout all of your day, right? And
Mhm.
your week and your month, those little bitty times when you do reap a harvest of blessing because you're not giving up.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that. And just being able to ask him for that, like, Lord, I could really use a harvest of blessing right now. It doesn't have to be a tangible, modified thing. It can even
yes,
just be this upwelling of joy,
yeah.
right?
That's great that you said that because I always think it's gonna happen way at the end. Like, the harvest
Mm,
of blessing, like, is gonna happen years down the road, and I'm just waiting to see it, but I love how you said, "No, just all the time, little harvests of just little blessings all the
yeah.
time." Like, "Let me have one, Lord, give me a win." Yeah, that's great.
We have to be able to lean into that. And I think that's one thing I've learned throughout this last couple years journey. Um, and in it, I did a revelation study
Mm,
about heaven
yeah,
and like all the truths of all the promises. And it was so powerful. And it enabled me to be able to have that real tangible, visual, you know,
mhm,
of the harvest of blessing that's coming on that
yeah,
day when he comes back. But Right. We need that sprinkled into
along the
every
way.
s yes.
Yeah,
When
that's
you're
great.
at the table around the curriculum,
Mhm.
mamas, we know, we totally understand how hard it is. So,
Yes.
we are going what are we gonna talk about today, Jenny, on the 100th episode?
We are going to revisit our story of why we started homeschooling, how it even came to be, and then where we are right now because our lives have shifted and changed. And we're one of us is back to homeschooling again and like we're where what our kids are doing. And so it's been a couple years since we started and made our first episode where we talked about that. So we're just going to kind of update and kind of revisit why we started in the first place.
Yeah, and we have to say, when we started podcasting, we had never made a podcast before in our lives. And so now we've made 100, and so we're a little more savvy. When we started, we had our phones on pillows in my room with all these like
Yeah.
literally, it was so funny. And I don't know that the technology was as readily available as it is now where we can, record like now we're recording virtually we're both at our own
Yeah.
homes. But my point was that we think about that first episode that we made, and it's a little cringy
We will
because
not go back and listen to it. We don't
oh,
know what it sounds like.
it's so hard to think that that's our most listened to
I
episode.
know.
Like,
Sorry.
many podcast listeners, they go to the first podcast episode,
Right.
and it is our story. Um, so we hope that this can be a more of the 100th episode. Can people listen to this more because maybe we sound more polished? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe we don't, Jen. Maybe we just
Maybe
think we do.
not. I know. I'd like to think we're improved, but maybe we're not. So
But we
that's all
don't
right.
care. We just want to be here and show up for you ladies, whether we're savvy technical podcasters or not. We just want to show up for you and help you and support you because
Right.
we know how hard it is. So we hope
Yeah.
that revisiting our story and telling you some of the surprising life changes we've had since we started
Mhm.
podcasting, that will inspire and encourage you. And
Mhm.
I think, Jenny, are you going to go
Yeah.
first?
Sure.
Okay.
I can talk
All
about
right.
mine first.
So,
Um,
why and how did you start homeschooling?
well, I will say that it was just never on my radar at all. I have 2 boys. They are now 20 and 16. But I was a public school teacher. I had been teaching first grade and doing all the learning to read and all that stuff. And so when I had my sons, they just went off to preschool and public school, and it was just not on my radar. And as a teacher, I thought homeschoolers were weird and crunchy and also not very smart, honestly, because I had one girl in my class one time who, okay, she was in first grade, but she couldn't write her name. She had been homeschooled and she did try to write her name and she made this E, capital E, and it had like all these flags on it, like all these lines on it. And I was like, oh my, this is first grade here. And I thought, and now I think it's terrible that I thought that, but I was like, "Oh my gosh, homeschoolers." So anyway,
She was doing her
I
creative
know she was
alphabet, which is
right.
so powerful. She's like, "This
Yeah,
is my E."
and when you're homeschooled, you're on your own timeline. You don't have to be on a, you know, get to
Yeah,
this level 17 reading level by the end of first grade, or else
right.
you know the world
There's no
blows up.
tests.
Yeah.
Right, there's no test or
No.
accountability if you don't want there to be. So,
Right.
anyway,
So
I love that
anyway,
your mindset has completely
it's
transformed from that.
completely changed. So fast forward, I have 2 boys. One of them is pretty active. Kindergarten at a public school. He was at a really good school where we live and a big school, but he ended up being in a class with a teacher who was great, and then they added a unit. So then he got put with a different teacher. She's great too, but he was out in the back 40 in a portable as a kindergartner. So I was like, "Ugh." So that year wasn't so great. He wandered around a lot and said he didn't get breakfast and would just wander around the school and go to the cafeteria and all these things. And I did feed him breakfast. Then first grade was okay, but he just got in trouble a lot at school. He was kind of in his own world. He was very active. So by second grade, I had prayed for this one teacher that he would get. And he did get her. She was very strict. And I was like, oh, perfect. She's going to whip him into shape. So he was in trouble all the time. It was also a year where they had 2 teachers in this class because there were 30 something kids in there. But it wasn't enough to create another class. So he was in this class with it was like a mob, and this was 2nd grade, and she had it with my kid. He just didn't do what he was supposed to do. He wandered around. She was sending home piles of work at the end of the day, and I'm like, he can't do this." And, there were a couple things that put us over the edge. One was my father-in-law passed away at the beginning of that year, and so we had to miss, like, the 2nd or 3rd day of school for his funeral, and the teacher was not happy about that. Um, there was also another time where we needed to take a family trip in October to Georgia, and it was great, um, because it was beautiful in October in North Georgia and all these things. So I'm like, "Oh, this will be nice." But it was, again, for my father-in-law and a wedding we had to go to and all these things. And the teacher, like, let me know that she was like, "I can't believe you're taking him out of school." I was just like, "You're crazy." And then there was another time at the end of the year where it finally she sent him to the office for, like, losing his work. And I mean, at a large elementary school, you don't go to the office, the principal, for losing your work. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you go to the office if you bite someone or you're fighting or you're running out of the school, or you know what I mean, for really
Yeah.
serious things. She sent him to the principal's office because he had lost his work. He had also had other referrals out of the lunchroom, all these things. So I'm just like, okay, if I have to be here all this time and whatever, I'm just going to do it myself. So I ended up pulling him out after 2nd grade. And Florida, where we live, like 3rd grade is like the testing year. Like if you don't
Mm.
pass all these 50 million tests, you end up being held back. And he's really smart. He loved to read and everything, but I was like, he's not going to do well on these tests. So it just happened. And then at the same time, my brother-in-law was asking me if I wanted to work from home and help him run his business. And so God just like aligned all these things right at one time. And I was like, okay, I guess I'm homeschooling. And we found a hybrid school, and that's where he ended up going, because I was working from home. And so he started there. It was a hybrid homeschool program. So he would go 2 days a week and then be home 3 days. And the teachers at that school made the plans. And then I did what they said at home. So anyway, that's how we got started. I know that's kind of long, but I had a very smart, bright kid, and he just was not fitting into this public school, or really, it ended up being any school. Like,
I think
uh,
the box of, just that whole setup. He's
yeah,
more
no,
yeah,
he's
he's
a
more
he's a
project-based learner.
yeah, he is, and
Yeah,
he needs to be outside, and
yeah.
he loves fishing. He's like a nature kid. Like, he never wore shoes. He just really loves outside and fishing and boating and all these things now. So anyway, that's
Not
how we
now,
got.
always.
Right,
He
always.
always was
Oh,
into
right,
that.
since a baby, really. I mean, since all the time. So he just we were finally able, through homeschooling, to be able to fit our school to him instead of try to squish him into a school and make him fit that school, because he just wasn't fitting
Yeah,
anywhere very well.
that's a powerful visual.
Yeah. So we eventually were homeschooling. We quit the hybrid school and it closed anyway. And so we just did it
And
ourselves
right,
for a while.
because
Mhm.
I was always like, "No, no, really, you're
Yes.
gonna do this
Well,
with
yes, I'm
me and
missing
my
the
husband."
most important part here, right. No, I kept saying to Kim, "Listen, I cannot stand some of this work from this hybrid
It
school.
was the
It's so
handwriting. Wait,
stupid."
we have to also say this, that at the
Yeah,
time, you and I, we went to church together, and we
right,
were the family at church who was always there when the doors
right.
were open. Wednesday,
Yes,
Sunday, our kids are the exact same age right now, 16 and 20.
correct.
And we volunteered in the children's ministry. So we saw each other all the time.
Right.
And at that time, I was homeschooling and doing lots of really
Yes.
cool nature study
Fun
things
things.
with
Yes.
4-H.
Yeah.
And
But with everything, you
Forrest
guys were always, like, on the go doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Awesome. Yeah.
but really my motivation was always like, man, because we were in these state competitions for these nature study things,
Right.
right? And I was
Yes.
like, dude, Forrest and Hayden would kill this. They would like totally
Yeah, because my boy knows
love
every
it.
fish, every bird, every whatever. Yeah. So,
And we were
yeah,
doing stuff anyway all the time. We were doing
right,
park dates and meetups, and it was like that hybrid school expectation, the work expectation, it just seemed like it was getting in the way. It
right,
was no longer a benefit or an
right,
enhancement. It was
right.
something that you kept talking about as
I
burdensome,
know. That's
right?
right.
And
And
it
so
was.
Kim's like, "Listen, Jenny, I remember you
Not worth
standing
it.
in our driveway or like at my front, like by my sidewalk that goes into my front door, and you're like, girl, just stop it. You
Yeah.
can totally do this by yourself." And I was like, "No, I can't do it." So
Well, and I had to
after,
say, we're going to do it
yeah,
together.
right. After a
Yeah.
while, she was like, "You don't need this school. You can totally do so many cool things with him and that he would love. You don't need to sit here and do the whole handwriting page." Because that was a contention that came up. I said to the teacher, like, "We would love to just do part of this handwriting page so
And
that."
she was like, no, right?
No, she said, "No, you have to do the whole thing." And I
Whole
was
thing.
like, "Well, this is dumb." I didn't say that in front of my child, obviously, but
Or to
oh my
her.
gosh, no,
But
no,
you're
no.
thinking in your mind,
Yes,
of
yes.
course, the
This
school
is
has
why we quit.
expectations.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
I
But
know.
school, people, teachers have expectations, and you wanted
Right.
to be
Of
the
course.
one to be able to let your kids ultimately
Yeah.
decide, you know,
Right.
what quality am I going to get out of this?
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We weren't getting quality because he would try to do the whole page. And halfway down the page, he would start rushing and it was all scribbles. So anyway, it just worked out in retrospect, looking back now here all these years later. I mean, it just worked out the way it was supposed to. And eventually my boy went back to high school. Should I
Ninth
talk
grade,
about
he
this
started.
now? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I
He's
think it's important.
yeah,
So you homeschooled from, because this is seasons, mamas. There are
right.
seasons,
Right.
right? Second grade all the way through the end of eighth grade.
Right, and then he ended up, we applied for a school that, is a fundamental school that, a lot of his friends were going to, a high school. It wasn't like a zoned high school. And he had been swimming. In the meantime, we had joined the swim team. He had been swimming for a couple years and he wanted to swim high school swimming with his friends. And so we applied for that school and he did get in, but it was halfway through his ninth grade year.
All
So
right.
we homeschooled at the beginning of ninth grade. And then in January, he got in, which was kind of a hard thing to start in the middle of the year, but he's
Yeah.
kind of resilient in that way. Like
Yeah.
he just does whatever. He didn't care. And he knew so many people there anyway. Um, and then he did the first quarter, the first 9 weeks, and then COVID happened.
Oh, right.
So, then we
Yeah.
were, like, back to homeschooling, literally 9 weeks later, only here we go again, we were having to do what the school said to do, which at that point was a disaster.
Crazy.
And that's how it went for, the rest of his ninth grade year and the beginning of his 10th grade year as well, because he was still trying to swim and get to states. And if you got sick, you could not go to school and you could not participate in states. So we chose to do school virtually again because something weird was happening. Like at that time, if like someone was sick around you and then you got sick, like you had to stay out a certain amount of days or something.
It was
So
so
all the
crazy.
swim parents decided we were doing
Uh,
virtual at the beginning of that year. So he almost went virtual another entire semester. Phew. It was so ridiculous. So
and then
we were yeah.
and then in his 11th grade year, that was when we started
He
the business.
yes, and that's when he went back fully, I believe. Well, it was probably the second half of his 10th grade year. Yeah, and that's when we started talking about starting a podcast and like helping homeschool moms. And I think it was at the beginning of his 11th grade year. Yeah, so he went 11th grade and 12th grade. He did a variety of things in high school. Like he did not love high school. He did not love classes. He was not getting the best of grades. He was just trying to we were just trying to get him through, but he still liked to go and socialize and swim. He's still getting good
Yeah.
enough grades to be able to swim, and he was
Well,
really, really good at that.
you really, really good. Like they ended up
Yeah,
winning state or something.
yeah,
Amazing swim
yeah, they were good.
accolades.
Mhm.
But you were very creative in the way that you set up his, classes because he did some dual enrollment or something with Florida Virtual
Yeah.
Schools.
There were several options that you could do at his school. A lot of the kids that go there are very college, minded, but they did have, we did there was an option where he could do a couple things online instead of having to stay in school all day. And so he would come home for lunch and do his online classes at
And
that
be home for
time.
the rest
He
of the
was
day
able to
because
leave. Yeah, he didn't have to stay the
yeah,
whole day. So
yeah.
that was a good thing. The classes weren't whatever.
I just remember it being
Yes.
so funny that we were starting our podcasting things and
Yes.
our meetings, and we would do it like noon or
Yes.
something. And the first couple times you were like, "Oh, I like," we were literally on the screen. You're like, "Oh, Forrest is at the door. He needs me to help him, whatever, whatever," and get started with his school. And you came back like the second time. And you were like, "I just realized I am actually homeschooling again. Like,
Well,
this is, he needs me."
right, as I'm sitting here talking about this, I'm like, even though he went to public school for the
Right.
majority of his high school, he probably was home almost half that time.
Which is so funny
I know,
because of the
it's really
COVID
weird.
thing and
Right.
the
And
chaos
then
schooling, right,
right.
virtually. But
Yeah.
then in 12th grade or 11th, whatever it was, when you did the creative
Right.
scheduling for him and he left at lunchtime.
Right.
Um, so really, yeah, because we just thought, oh, we're done homeschooling. But both
Right.
of us, God
No.
just was like, you're really not done. So I've got to,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but Hayden, that's your younger one. He
Yes.
also was homeschooled through
I
all the
know.
way
I
till
didn't even
eighth,
mention him, did I?
the
The
end of
reason
eighth
we
grade. Well,
started was because of my older one. But my younger one was very active as well and totally thrived in that environment of being
yeah,
able to, get outside for a lot of the day. And he's a good student. He's currently in high school and he just applied to do early college so that hopefully next
oh,
year in
cool.
his junior year, he won't even have to go to the high school. He'll just be able to go to
Yeah.
college, this St. P College there for his classes. So we'll see
That's
if
awesome.
he is able to do that. But yeah, that's just how we ended up starting and how
I
it
love it.
ended.
I love your story, and I just realize more and more how much our stories align with each other.
Yeah.
So, and again, well, I don't know what I was gonna say, but now it's my turn, right?
Yes, go.
Okay, so, I, like Jenny, was a public school teacher for, 9 years. I taught ESE in all different elementary grade levels, and, when I was pregnant, my baby was born in June, and I knew, I didn't wanna go back to work, so I was able to resign, and when it was time around for us to decide, schooling options, kindergarten was starting, my husband is like, "Oh, well, you're gonna homeschool, right?" And I was like, "Why? What? No." Like Jenny, I was like, "I don't even know what that is. Why would I do that? I
Yeah.
love school. I can't wait to shop for stationery and like,
Mhm.
like school
Right.
supplies."
Notebooks.
And I wanted to be like the volunteer mom. Um, and I mean, I got to say this really briefly, but I grew up in a family that was where I didn't have a lot of opportunity. Like I had kind of a more dysfunctional family. So I've been a very much an overcompensator. Like I've realized it more and more in the last few years. I love my parents, they're great. And I've, come to terms with all the weird ways I was raised, but I wanted to, volunteer and be the PTA mom and, all the things. And so I was like, of course I want her to go to school because it's going to be partly my experience as a like,
Right.
the mom I never had. Like I want to be that kind of a PTA mom. So she did go to kindergarten, but like Jenny, we applied. I didn't want her to go to um, our zone school because I didn't know anything about it. I thought we were actually zoned for the school that I went to because I lived closer to that school. And, I went there as a child. And when I looked at our map and I'm like, wait a minute, she's zoned for this other school, which I knew of course, because, I lived here my whole life. But I didn't like that idea. I was like, I don't want her to go to that school. Okay, I'm going to apply for this fundamental school thing too. And the fundamental schools are just lotteries. You don't have to have any
Right.
anything. You just apply and you get in if your number gets picked.
Mhm.
So she was on the waiting list, but she was like number 1 or 2 or something. And I knew that she would eventually get in. They told me she's going to get in at some point, and I didn't want her to start at the school I didn't want her to go to and then have to transition, to the fundamental school. So of course, God knew, right, that my husband was right, and I started homeschooling just so she could have a clean start when she did get in and not have to switch schools. So that was only for about 3 weeks, and we did some super fun things in those 3 weeks. But then when she got in, I was excited for her to get in.
Mhm.
And I did volunteer. I went up there and worked with the kids who were struggling readers because, I have my ESE background, and I did that in her classroom. I worked in the garden. I was like there all the time. And my boy was what, 2 or something? And my
Mhm.
mom was over here watching him. And I was just like there at that school, like 2 to 3 days out of a week. I mean, think about that when you, it's just
That's a
crazy.
lot.
Yeah. And one day I was sitting there working with this little boy, struggling reader, and they were getting ready for lunch, but I had a little more to finish up. So the kids were walking by to go to lunch in their little line, and they were walking right by us. And when Anastasia got by me, she's like, Mommy, when are you going to work with me? Are you going to work with me, when we get back from lunch? And it was that moment right there. I'm not kidding you.
It's
I was
crazy.
so convicted. I'm like, I'm never going to work with her because she's not a struggling reader. I
Right.
am never, if I stay in this, I am giving my time to the man.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's it. And she was really doing well, of course, in kindergarten. Because, I mean, my husband knew, like, hello, I had
Yeah.
been homeschooling probably since she was in preschool, right?
Right.
But still sending her to the buildings that were a blessing, and I loved it. It
Yes.
was great. But it was just at that moment that it really hit me, and I think that was around April. And
Mhm.
so I knew, and I talked to him, and I was like, yeah, I do need to homeschool. Like, this is crazy, like, realization right now. And we didn't
The
say anything to
scales fell
her.
off your eyes.
Yes, it was the
Yeah.
scales falling off of my eyes.
Seriously.
So that's when we started our journey, was when she was in first grade. But really that summer, um, the last day of school, she was so excited. And I don't even really know how we knew about homeschooling other than for some reason Mark found out about it. And I didn't know anything about it, but
Yeah. When you're in public school, you don't know
plus,
homeschooly
there
people.
wasn't there wasn't this, like, crazy internet, like, too much
No.
knowledge. There wasn't
Right.
too much information at that time,
Right.
So, anyway, we were, homeschooling then all through elementary school, except 5th grade. And wait, let me back up. My son, who is 4 years younger, I didn't send him to preschool. I
Mhm.
didn't do any of the things. He just did all the stuff along with us. I had
Mhm.
a lot of really cool, like, morning basket kind of systems and
Mhm.
audiobooks and, things like that. So we had lots of rich learning experiences with creative ways to respond. That's like, my mantra I've realized in these last
Mhm.
100 episodes. I mean, it was so fun and interactive, but I still did have this pull to the books. Like, I had to make it legitimate. So I did still spend time in curriculum and books and in the little teacher's box. It was like a evolution of my mindset kind of changing.
Right.
The more that I saw that the out of the box things were so enhancing and so rich, the more I was able to let go of that. But I still did all the way till the end of our journey. I still did rely on, like, real books, you know what I mean? Like, real curriculum. If
Yeah.
I went back now, like, if I did, like, I thought my great niece and nephews, I would be so delivered from that
Oh,
feeling
yeah.
of inadequacy. Like, I thought that what I
Yeah.
was doing wasn't adequate enough. I know
Yeah.
now that it's so good and it's fine. Um, but that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
So, uh, in 5th grade, though, we were in the situation of when my daughter was in 5th grade in our family, I had to go back to work, you guys. And it was October, the end of October. And I did get a great job as an ESE teacher. What I had been doing, the last year that I worked when I was pregnant. But here my kids and I are literally like, Oh my gosh, this is so sad. Like the last day we homeschooled, we literally cried on the couch together. It was so heartbreaking.
Oh.
But at the same time, it was such a blessing because I
Yeah.
needed monetarily to go back to work. And I found a job where they could go with me. And
Yes.
so every day we loaded up in the car together, went to school together. My girl could come in my room and eat lunch with me. My boy, I could see him
Right.
all the time. So it was a crazy year where we just learned so much um, about ourselves, and
Mhm.
we were done at the end of that year. The need for me to work, and I was like happy, and we were like, yes, we're going to go back to homeschooling. And my daughter was going into middle school. She did have we did have to think about maybe, putting her in a middle school. So we did all of the things like usually in January you um, can look at all the options for middle school. So we went to like these discovery days and saw all these amazing magnet programs, and we got exposure to that, which was good at that point because it would come into play when she wanted to go to high school. Because just
Mhm.
like Jenny, my kids, we homeschooled all the way through eighth grade. With my daughter, it was all the way through ninth grade. But had we not had that experience when she was in fifth grade and my son was in first grade, I just don't think we would have done her middle school years as freely. Like it freed up our minds with, my daughter was starting to say, is this even real school? When
Oh, yeah.
right? They
Yes.
go through this phase where this isn't real school, mom. Like, what do you
Yeah.
mean? And then when my son, so right, it's his second, third, and fourth grade years when she was in middle school, it just enabled us to really, and this was about when you and I really started doing things
Stuck
together.
together. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it really allowed us to embrace kind of more of an unschooling um, mindset, and
Mhm.
just really do a lot of super cool learning experiences, and be led by that. Does that
Yeah,
make
and follow
sense?
our children's leads instead of
Yes.
planning all the
Yes.
things for them.
For them. It
Yeah.
allowed me to be able to say, what do you guys want to do?
Right.
And yeah, that first year back in sixth grade, I was like, kids, we're going to do this awesome Florida unit and like travel learn. Does
Right.
this sound good? And they were like, yeah, super cool. Let's do some cool things.
Mhm.
So we did so many things about Florida that year and tried to like, not a, not, expensive traveling, just drive
Yeah.
to see cool things, in driving distance and stuff. But anyway, so we did that through my daughter's ninth grade year together. And in ninth grade, she was really she really decided, and this is also good for you to hear, mamas, that was really the year she decided that she wanted to be collegiate, that
Mm.
she was going to apply for colleges and wanted to go away to college. I mean, when she first really got started in this mindset, she wanted to go to like MIT in Boston, and like she applied to
I
10
remember.
or yeah, all around the country. She got into, and over here like cringing every time she told
Yeah.
me, I got into Washington State or something in Vermont, and she got an interview at MIT, and I was just like, oh Lord Jesus, please, like this is way too far away, way too costly. Of course, I'm not saying anything like that to her. I'm just like, you know what? If God wants her to go to these places, it'll work
He'll
out.
find a way. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was just she did not think about college really as an option until honestly that ninth grade year. And that might seem crazy to some moms who think that you really have to like college prep, but for her, it worked out. I mean, she ended up
Mhm.
getting into UF. So wait, I'm skipping the part. So in 10th grade,
Right.
she applied and got into a magnet program that had a graphic design program. Again, just a lottery. You just, if your
Mhm.
number's picked and you go there.
Mhm.
And so she went to that high school. She did great there. She was so nervous when she first started, like, how am I going to, fit in academically, and how am I going to
Mhm.
make it, and how am I going to fit in socially? And after like 2 weeks, she's like, okay, this is fine. I'm good.
I
It's
got
easy,
this.
right?
Yeah.
And like Forrest, that was the year of COVID. So by March, she's like, "Dang it! All I wanted to do was go to school, and now I'm back here."
Right.
But her other mindset was, well, this actually is pretty cool because I don't have to wake up early every day. We are not early morning people. And that part of it was really hard for her. And the independent study, which so many of her classmates had such a hard time with, she was like, dude, this is my jam. Like, I've been doing
Right.
this my whole homeschool life. I love this stuff.
Mhm.
So, and then she dual enrolled 11th and 12th grade. So, really, she was only back in, school for
Right.
right? August until the end of February or
Mhm.
middle of March, whatever it was that COVID year. So, and then my son went through the same thing in eighth
Mhm.
grade. He was like, you know what? I think I really want to go to high school. And he wanted to go to the school that she went. They have a vet assisting program where they work with animals, and he loves animals. And he was able to get preference because she has been there. And
Mm.
so, of course, he did it. He got in, he went.
Mhm.
Ninth grade, he loved it. He would wake me up to go to get there like 20 minutes early. I was like, this is crazy, man. I mean,
Because
early,
it
you guys,
starts at, like,
7:30.
7:25.
You want to be there at 7:05, the first half
Oh.
of ninth grade. I know. And he was so like, just like her, he's like, how am I going to, like, this is a boy who was even more out of the box than her. Like, I did not do a lot of testing with them.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I'm talking, annual testing, like, achievement testings like those, but I also never didn't give him a lot of tests, like chapter tests or
Yeah.
anything like that. We did more oral narration tests and things like that. So anyway, he was like, am I going to be able to do it academically? And he was over the top. I mean, he did a great job. And he was like, yes, his GPA's great. And that was the end of 10th grade. And then when he started 11th grade, that was this year, you guys, he was like, I am done. Like, first of all, I don't think I want to be a vet. He's
Mm.
had tons of experience those first 2 years of actively vetting, and he
Mhm.
started um, volunteering at a vet hospital. So he was steeped in it, and he was confident to say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a
Mhm.
vet. And he was like, I cannot academically like hang with all of this anymore. I cannot dedicate 7 hours of my life to the school day and then come home and dedicate, 2 or 3 more hours to homework
Mhm.
because that's what it takes at that school. All of the core classes
Mhm.
are honors level classes, like the fundamental school. It's no joke. It's
Mhm.
academically rigorous. And all the testing and all the things. And 11th grade just hits it hard. So, you guys, it was crazy in October of this school year, last year, 2024, he literally came home. I mean, it was just like a week's time where it was like, this is it, mom. I'm done. And he had really been considering it since the end of ninth grade. It was like, I don't know, this is a lot. But he kept going and he kept getting good grades and doing great. But in October of 11th grade, it was like, dude, if you finish this semester, your GPA is going to be tanked because he didn't want to do it and he wasn't doing it. And
Mhm.
I was like, I'm not forcing you to do this. Like, if
Right.
anything, I'm saying the smartest decision, and I think it
Mhm.
really is,
Mhm.
was to save his GPA, leave when he did.
Mhm.
Um, he had 3 months, well, October, November, December, yeah, 3 months of really like deschooling. God opened opportunities for him to work with his dad rebuilding his grandma's house. So,
'Cause this was
my
all
husband's
during
mom. Yeah,
2
this was the storm.
hurricanes,
2
right?
hurricanes, right? More
In 2
chaos and
weeks,
craziness.
yes.
Yep. His grandma's house got flooded. That's my husband's mom. And my husband can do all the construction things. He actually went to the high school that my kids went to. It's been around for a long time. And he won construction awards. Did you know that? He won
No, I
construction.
didn't.
Yeah, he was in the construction and building
Mm.
class, and he won builder of the year or whatever, like 2 years.
No way, I
Carpenter
didn't
of the
know
year.
that.
Yeah, carpenter of the year. He won 2 years in a
Nice.
row. But anyway, um, so literally, you know, it was God's perfect timing because
Mhm.
there would never have been a time frame that I would have thought that other than these past 3 months that my son and my husband would be able to work together in such a capacity where my husband would be teaching him something so tangibly rich. I wanna cry,
Yeah.
like,
I
you
know.
understand, my mother-in-law's house was stripped, right? Like, after that little flood, she only got 6 inches of water, but it doesn't matter. You take
Yeah.
everything out, you take out all the drywall, all the
Right.
things, and so he went with his dad and rebuilt things that they could now see and look at, and
Yeah.
he had no experience in doing any of that stuff, and, um,
What
my
a
son,
blessing.
and no desire,
Right.
right? But all of a sudden, it's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, I
What a
wanna go work
blessing.
with dad." Yeah.
Yeah.
So he made money, he got experience,
Mhm.
he's helping his grandmother rebuild her life, where in this time frame, her husband died, my husband's stepdad, it was it's just been hard, but at the same time, there's this life-giving educational setting that that my
Hmm.
that is available not only for my boy, but that
Mhm.
um, my husband and his mom are being able to be nurtured through that loss um, of his stepdad and her husband. That, whew, it's
You're
just
giving
so
me goosebumps.
powerful.
I'm about to cry.
Girl, I
Have
have
you
not
talked
really.
about this? I
I don't
know.
think, I mean, I have, and I've
No.
been amazed by it because,
Yeah.
Jenny, I don't wanna go into great detail with this, but,
Yes.
this past year has been
Yes.
crazy in our
Right.
marriage and our family, and, we have had such a tearing down at the first half of this year, and then a rebuilding that included 2
Yeah.
hurricanes,
Right.
and, like, the community around us actually being destroyed and then having to
Right.
build back up, and here my boy is having like, I wanna call it an educational renaissance. I mean, it started with him wanting to leave was painful.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched him cry and blubbery, ugly cry, like,
Aw.
feeling disappointed that he was leaving,
Yeah.
but I was like, "Dude,
Like he was
it's not."
quitting. Yeah.
Yes, and I said, "You're not, it's not a disappointment, it's an opening of doors and opportunities
Mhm.
that, is really, this is a God-led thing,
Right.
right?"
And you had no
Oof.
idea what was gonna happen after that, that we were gonna get hit. 2
I mean,
hurricanes, her house was gonna be messed up.
it was
The
just,
community where the restaurant I mean, yeah,
yeah, that's
yeah,
another
and her
thing, right?
family owns a restaurant on the
On
beach,
the beach,
right?
which
Yeah,
was one of
so
only 4
another
restaurants that
right,
did not sustain any damage in the storm. We were literally open 2 days after the
right.
storms went through, and yeah, it's
It's
been
just
crazy,
a
but I would
crazy
not take
time.
it back. So this
Yeah,
semester, Wyatt is back to a regular, it's a homeschool schedule, and I'm
yeah,
gonna do a separate episode about that with a update about the specifics, but I just wanna encourage you homeschool
right.
moms that, see, this is about
This is the point.
seasons. Yeah.
Right.
The 100th episode, it's about seasons
Yeah,
in your life and being open to God leading you into this from Galatians, circling back. Don't get tired of doing what is good. At
yeah,
just the right time, we're going to reap a harvest of blessings if we don't give up. And
mhm,
sometimes not giving up looks like changing things completely so that they are a blessing every day instead of a burden. Does that make
yep,
sense?
totally.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Whew, what a thing.
We had no idea this was going here,
No,
this
I love
podcast.
it. We
I
started,
love
I
it.
was like, the 100th episode, we got to do something special. Let's just start
Yeah,
talking. So, to wrap up
awesome.
our kids and where they are at right now,
Yeah,
my kids, so Wyatt is starting his spring semester of junior year. He's back to
mhm,
homeschooling and doing great with it. And last semester, I've had to piecemeal some things together. I'm making some transcripts that are going to look wacky, but it's okay. It is
mhm.
okay that last semester was what it was. I'm
Yeah,
giving him credit for the building and construction.
yeah,
Um,
totally.
but I could sit here and I could dwell on the fact that he didn't take English. He didn't take his US history class, but I'm not doing that. I'm not
No,
doing that. there's plenty of time. He's got another
This
year and a
time.
half
That's
to
right.
do these credits. And my daughter just started her 3rd, year. Well, this is her 3rd year at UF and this semester. And then she's got an amazing opportunity this summer that Jenny, we haven't talked about this at all, but through her 4-H experiences, she has an internship this coming summer that she will be getting uh, as part of that. So that's
Nice.
where they are now. And
Mhm.
I am a homeschooling mom again, and I love
Yes.
it. All
So
right. So, how about
awesome.
your kids, Jenny? Tell us where they are in a
Yep.
nutshell right
So
now.
where we are is, after high school, my son graduated, and he
Forrest, the
was
oldest.
yep, the oldest. Yeah, he was working, at a restaurant, and he's kind of been wandering around a little bit, but he finally well, and the hurricane destroyed the restaurant, but right at the same time, he got a
Amazing.
job at a restoration company, which is greatly needed after your community gets destroyed by 2
Yep.
hurricanes.
And
So
now
he
listen, wait,
what?
before the
Oh,
hurricanes,
right,
he
sorry.
started applying for there. That was like kind of an ongoing
He
thing for a
did,
few
and
months
I
before.
forgot that he also did a technical school in the
Oh, yeah.
meantime
Yeah. Yeah.
for a
1 year.
semester to do, marine mechanics, and he did not like it. So he lasted a semester, and we kept saying, "No, push it out a little longer, see if you can, keep going." And he finally was like, "No, I'm done. I've given it my all, and I don't like this, and I don't want to do it." So we were like, "Okay, fine." So yes, then he ended up after the hurricanes getting a job. Yes, this was in the works right before the hurricanes,
Yes.
and literally, it was almost to the day, like,
Yeah.
when the hurricane hit and he ended up getting hired, at the new restoration company where he is making really great money for a kid right
Yeah.
out of high school almost. And he has opportunities to get different certifications like mold certification and water and all these different things. And every time he gets paid more per hour.
I wanna
Um,
cry.
I
And
know.
how does he feel about his new amazing
And
job?
he loves it. He's making great money. He's driving around doing different things all day. Sometimes he's driving an hour or 2 away to different, places around the Tampa Bay area. And his friend got a job there too. I don't know
Oh,
if I
I
told
didn't
you
know
that.
that.
He has a friend who has a job there too. He got him the job as well. So he just loves it. He gets to do something different every day. He's been driving a forklift.
That's awesome. And he's
He
working
loves it.
hands and he's
Yes.
outside.
He's outside, he's, not in an office building or anything boring. He's doing things that he likes. He's going to people's homes to help them bail out water and save their things, and um
It's like a
he likes it.
ministry, right? He's, like,
Yeah, I
actually
know.
seeing that he helps people, and I
Yes.
think the most important thing on this too
Yeah.
is that there is a future in this position.
Yes,
There
there
is
is.
all
Right.
kinds of places for him to,
Right. Yeah, they work with a lot of
grow.
contractors. I mean, if he wants to go that avenue or any of that. So he's
Yeah.
doing well right now. We're really happy about that. And then my youngest is
Goodness.
in his sophomore year, second semester. And like I just said a little bit
Yeah,
ago, he applied for early college. So we'll see if that pans out. And he has no idea what he wants to do, but
that's okay.
he's a funny kid and he's like a quick thinker. And
Yeah.
so I can't wait to see what God has for him. I have no idea. And I just, now that
So
I'm
cool.
sitting here looking back over all of this, it's so cool to see
It is so cool
in
because,
retrospect how things have worked out.
yeah, because 'cause we've had
Mhm.
a lot of conversations where we were like, "What the heck is gonna happen to our kids?"
Oh my gosh, Kim,
Right? Is
what
this the
have I
right
done?
thing? Are we doing the right thing? What are they
Yeah,
gonna what's gonna happen?
I know.
And,
They're gonna be living with us forever, right?
they're productive members, yes, and
They
at 16,
are.
yeah, they're productive members of society, and it's amazing, and we're
It's
still
happening.
also, watching them wrestle with their faith. That's
Their
the
own
part where
faith.
where
Yeah.
we kind of get, whew,
Mhm.
lately, but
Yep.
that's another thing is you have to just give it to
Pray.
God and, um, real quick as we wrap it up,
Yes. I know, because 'cause
um,
I've been looking at the time. It's
I
almost
know,
50 minutes. It's so long.
and we have a
It's
lot to
okay.
say about our
I
100th episode,
know.
but, I think the phase that we're in with our kids now is so much different, and especially helping them nurture their faith,
Mhm.
is less of a, we were all in it when they were younger. We're all
Mhm.
around the book and the
Yeah.
devotional and the action Bible, and we're all doing things together and with friends. And, our kids went to VBS together
Yeah.
and Wednesday night church.
All of it.
Whereas, yeah, all of it. Whereas now we just talked before we started recording about
Mhm.
how we kind of have to circle the wagon of our kids and their faith right now, where it's
Mhm.
not it's just like that scripture. They are wrestling with their own
Yeah.
faith and they're growing independent with that. And it's
Right.
much more powerful for us to be not in their face about it, not at the table, not like, oh, let me share this Bible study with you.
Right.
They don't respond as well to that now as they
No.
did when they were little. And that's a learning curve for us. And just being able to trust God. And again, back to this, right?
Right. So
Just
pack it in when they're little.
Yeah, yeah. Do as much as you can, right, in the word
Right.
together, for sure. But we're not gonna give up of doing that
No.
good thing and talking about God's good plans
Right.
because we know that there's another harvest of blessing coming, um,
Amen.
and it's in their faith and their walk with what God wants them to do,
Right.
because they're trying to figure that out. And Jenny and I, we've both, and every adult,
Yeah.
going through your adulthood, you go through that, and
Yeah.
it is really hard to watch them,
Yeah.
struggle, but,
You leave the
just
nest and
yeah,
you
and
have to
just
find
letting
your own faith. Mhm.
yeah, you have to find your own faith, but letting them know that we're here for them, I think, is the
Yeah.
most important thing, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, they all know that they can come back to us,
Yep.
and we're consistent in helping them
Right.
seek the good plan.
Yes.
Whew, praise the
Amen on
Lord.
that.
Phew.
Yes.
All
Well, we
right.
we hope you've enjoyed listening. We've enjoyed talking to you,
I
to
hope
each
so.
other.
We sure have.
Yes.
So
But,
we meet every Wednesday if you
we
all
do.
want to join our online community. And it's a great thing. We have a forum also 24/7, similar to, Facebook style posts and direct messages and all the things. And you can
Yeah.
find out more about that at thehomeschoolwell.com.
Yep.
If you'd like to have a free discovery call with us, we do those as well. And
Mhm.
we can chat and see if we're a good fit. We would love to have you in our community around the well. And we will definitely be back next week for our 101st episode.
Yes. Amazing.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much, though, to everyone who has listened and supported us.
Yes.
And we see the numbers of the people who listen, and it just gets us excited to visualize, your faces.
We
And
would
we
love
hope
to
that,
see them in person.
yes, we would love to meet you in person,
Mhm.
and just continue to bless your homeschool journey.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Are you looking for a place to connect with other homeschool moms? Well, we have a platform where members gather to support each other throughout their homeschool journeys. Moms just like you. We even have a spot for your kids to interact online in privacy and safety. So head over there and start creating community. Thehomeschoolwell.com.